We'd like to welcome you today to today's webinar. My name is Adina Sullivan-Marlowe, and I'm with the San Diego County Office of Education's Teacher Effectiveness and Preparation Unit, which is part of the Human Resources Division at SDCOE. This webinar is being presented as part of a series of sessions in partnership with workforce.org. Today's session is all about technology careers in education. We are recording this session, so you can review it again at a later date. And this recording, as well as the other sessions in this series, will be found at workforce.org/on-demand, and we'll throw that in the chat as well. For the webinar, we do ask you to keep your microphone muted, but you can use the chat feature and type in any questions you have during the session, and I will relay those aloud to our presenters. I now have the privilege of introducing our presenters. We have Terry Loftus, Assistant Superintendent and Chief Technology Officer, Integrated Technology Services for the San Diego County Office of Education, and Dwayne Kosey, Director of Information Technology for Vista Unified School District. We are very, very fortunate to have them here today. As someone who used to work on the teacher side of the house in a school district technology department, I can tell you that these two are professionals who are highly, highly respected, not just in San Diego County, but throughout California and beyond. So enough from me. I'd like to go ahead and turn it over now to Terry and Dwayne.
Thank you very much, Adina. I think the first thing we'll do is I'll share my screen. We have a few slides and some information to share. Let's go to our full screen. Can everybody see my screen? Maybe if you have your camera on, give me a thumbs up. Okay, looks like we're good. All right. Thank you all very much for being here today. K-12 technology has been and continues to be a critical element of K-12 education, not only here in San Diego, but across the state and across the nation. And that has only been amplified in our new era of COVID-19. And so Dwayne and I will step through some information to update you and give you some context around not only the job market in general around technology, but specifically what that means in K-12 education, the types of roles that are available. And as we go along, as Adina mentioned, please feel free to enter questions into the text chat, and we'll get through those as we go along. And then at the end, we will pause as well to have some more Q&A. This is meant to be interactive. It's meant to be a discussion. It's not meant to be formal. So if you do have questions, we're happy to answer those as we go along. I'm going to start us off, though, and just give you a little bit of context as far as technology jobs across all sectors in California. So some of you may be familiar with CompTIA, the organization that offers certifications such as A+, Network Plus, and so forth. They do an annual study, and so this is their 2020 version that came out a few months ago. And just wanted to give you kind of a high-level view first, and then we'll drill down, and Dwayne will tell us a little bit about how it's valuable to consider jobs in education and how they can be fulfilling roles. But just to give you an overview here, California obviously is known as an innovative state. A lot of big tech companies in the Bay Area and here in San Diego and LA. It is a huge market, and there has been considerable growth. So metrics lag a little bit. And so as you look at this report, you can see that, for example, the second item, that the net tech job gains from 2018 to 2019, these are just brand new jobs in technology, is over 61,000. So a lot of job growth in technology all across California, to be certain. Some other items to share with the group is just looking at why would you want to be in the tech sector? What are the benefits to that? Obviously, one of our primary drivers in employment is income and supporting ourselves and maybe our families and beyond. And so taking a look here on the left, again, from the CompTIA report, really just looking at nationwide, bundling everything together. When you look at the median national wage, that average versus the tech wage, you see that it is a pretty significant gap. That the tech jobs across the country pay very well, and this is this is something we see in the most recent study. The other piece that I like to share particularly with job seekers is keeping in mind that, that we have a lot of folks who are going to be retiring in the coming years. From the education sectors, we have a lot of baby boomers and folks that maybe your family members or parents are moving into that phase. And so it's not only the creation of new jobs, but it's also filling existing jobs. So that graphic on the right just shows you really, really briefly from 2008 to 2018 more recently, and then what's projected for 2028 really tells a story of a significant opportunity for positions that will be available to job seekers. I'm going to run through also just a couple of the fastest growing before turning it over to Dwayne. This is from a Business Insider report from late 2019, and it was just counting down some of the fastest growing occupations and giving a little bit of information about where employment is headed, not only when the study was completed at the end of 2018, but where it's projected to go through 2028. So we see information security is very much a hot topic. That is a huge, not only a growth area, but an area where we already do not have enough staff nationwide or even globally to meet the cybersecurity need. Computer support specialists are a very common position, a common role within all types of organizations, but this too is growing due to the continued growth and dependence on technology across all sectors. Software developers, we see there on the far right, has some significant growth and also has a very high median annual wage. Then the last slide, just giving 3 more examples here, is computer systems analysts. So again, maybe a step up from that technician type roles, someone with a specialization or deep skill set in a certain area. A lot of growth there. Computer and information system manager. So we know that there's also some folks who may have some technical know-how or be doing coursework right now in information technology that have served as managers in either retail or healthcare or energy or other sectors. And management roles, to be clear, are in high demand as well in the IT space. And then number 2 on their list overall, second, I don't have the first place one on here, but some of you might guess that nurses is in healthcare is number 1 as far as demand. And that's very, very obvious, but sometimes people don't realize that software developers are the second highest and fastest growth area as far as occupation. So as you can see there, in 2018, over 940,000 roles available, and that's going to grow pretty considerably. And again, a very high median annual wage. And now I'll just turn it over briefly to Dwayne to talk a little bit about working in education and the why.
Hello, everyone. So I just want to point out that education is definitely a unique niche to work in. So as Terry went through the different job growth in those different areas, a lot of times when people look at the job growth, they kind of leave out, it's mostly focused on commercial business and those Fortune 500 type companies, and people forget that there's that public sector, the nonprofit organizations that need the same level of competency. And so while you may not make the same salary as the counterparts in the private industry, public organizations, specifically education, there's a value to overall society. And so we have a couple of things listed here. So you'll get to champion inclusive education for all young people, as well as make a real impact on someone's life. You may not actually have that direct contact depending on your role. You could be working at the school level, or you could be working at the district level or county level, like Terry or myself, and you may not have that direct contact. But I always liken it to when I was in school in the late '80s, that everyone had to have a encyclopedia. And that was the way. If you had the latest edition and you had access, you didn't have to go to the library. Well, the internet, obviously, you know, is that new access, and so providing that access to someone is invaluable to their education and their experience. So, and it's definitely a dynamic environment. For example, I work in a school district with 20,000 students, and so we actually have a device for every student. That's massive. So you're not going to get that impact in a lot of private, you know, companies. It's important that we're able to provide that educational experience and that technology experience based on the decisions you make or the technology you work with. And so, and lastly, you can make a positive contribution to your community, which is extremely important, depending on actually where the school district is. So, and then we have this quote down here: technology can be a powerful tool for transforming and empowering learning. Extremely important. It can help affirm and advance relationships between educators and students, reinvent our approaches to learning and collaboration, shrink long-standing equity and accessibility gaps, and adapt learning experience to meet the needs of all learners. Our school, community, colleges, adult learning centers, and universities should be incubators for exploration and innovation, or invention. I always use innovation. Educators should be collaborators in learning and seek new knowledge and constantly acquiring new skills alongside their students. Education leaders should set a vision for creating learning experiences that provide the right tools and support for all learners to thrive. And that's what we do. Extremely important. Let's see. Okay. So again, why work in education? So Terry, do you want to jump in on this slide as well?
Yeah, thanks, Dwayne. I wanted to point out here, sometimes when we look at job statistics from the Department of Labor or others, and even in the first slide of this presentation today, we're looking at an entire country, or we're looking at a state, or in some cases a county level. And as a job seeker or someone who is looking to move upward and onward from their current role or change the role that they're working in to move into technology, you want to know that that company or that organization, sometimes it might be small, it might be a startup. In other cases, it might be larger. And obviously larger means that there's a lot more job security that comes along with that. And so just to give a sense of the state of California has a budget of $190 billion. And as you can see there, K-12 education accounts for almost 30%. Which is pretty massive if you think of the entire state and all of the funds that go to all of the different programs, from transportation to government operations to healthcare, hospitals, you name it. There are lots of priorities throughout the state. We have a very diverse and large state. And so the fact that nearly 30% of that goes to K-12 education shows you that that is a priority, and it's a very, very large body of K-12 institutions that offer technology positions. So if you're looking to, one of the other benefits of getting into the education sector is you build a lot of relationships. One of the other benefits of working in education is that it's, for those of us who worked in the private sector, you know that it's always a competition, right? You've got threats from other competitors out there, other companies, other organizations. The beauty of working in K-12 education is that we're all on the same team. And it's this huge group across the entire state that works together, that shares knowledge, that builds each other up, and is very, very supportive. So for example, Dwayne serves on the board of directors for an organization called SITE, which is focused on technology and technology workers throughout the state of California, with thousands and thousands and thousands of members. And to be in an environment where you can, again, share best practices, talk through, maybe you have a big deployment coming up, or you're building a new data center, or there's some other project that you've got in the pipeline. You have not only the people within your own organization, in your own district or your own charter, but you have people across the state that are very open and willing to share information. It isn't this walled garden where everybody's kind of fending for themselves. It's a very collaborative space to be in. And I can share, at least from my perspective of many, many years in the private sector and retail and otherwise, that's not the case. It's not as friendly or open or inclusive. And it really is refreshing to be in an environment where people support each other every single day. The next item we're going to do here, and again, you're welcome to jump in with some questions, is we just have a few slides where, I'm sure you all know, there are hundreds of different types of technology roles, and technology itself is just very, very vast. And there's lots of different specializations, areas to go into. So we're going to cover just a handful today, but we wanted to give some examples of some of the things that are available. And you'll see, as Dwayne mentioned, there's a lot of overlap with what you see in the private sector. But there are some unique things to education. We'll touch on those as we go along. But we're just going to give a few examples. Again, if you have any questions on these, please feel free to put them in the chat. After each slide, we'll pause for just a moment. But I'll take these first two and then give the next slide to Dwayne. Apologies for the typo on the very first one there, but the objective there for a help desk or a systems technician is really about maintaining computers and mobile devices. We think about things that students use and staff use, desktop computers, laptops, Chromebooks, iPads, other types of mobile devices, and then all the peripherals that go along with that, right? Familiar with printers and monitors and projectors in the classroom, equipment in labs, equipment in the office environments, because sometimes people don't think about the operations or office side of education. They think about teachers in classrooms, and that's spot on, but it's a much bigger ecosystem than that. There's lots of people that are working in administrative capability or capacities. There is, it's like a large corporation in many cases, a school district managing the finances and funding, transportation, food service, you name it. So help desk technicians are in high demand. Generally speaking, and again, just a caveat, these qualifications are general. We just pulled some examples from some different districts in the county office. So help desk technicians usually require at least a high school diploma or GED, and that you have some demonstrated proficiency in one or more specialized areas relating to computer systems. So for example, if you've had an interest earlier in life to build your own computers and put things together, and that is exciting and fun for you, this is a really, really great entry-level role. Training, some sort of training, a certification, or even some coursework that maybe just is underway. A lot of times we see folks working through college courses or certification courses that you can absolutely bring those to the table and say, hey, this is what I'm passionate about and this is what I'm working through. Student information systems technician is a very different position, but very important as well. You may know that there's lots of students in San Diego County. We actually have just over 500,000 students currently in our schools across San Diego County alone. And so keeping track of all those students in databases and with student information systems and all the information needed to track grades and attendance and all of these other components live in these highly complex databases. And so working with those platforms, what's commonly known as a student information system, a technician role works with those data requests, helps with reporting, helps with user training. The qualifications is having an understanding about some of the state reporting mechanisms, such as CalPADS and CaseMIS. These are things that you can actually research on your own or go to the state of California's website. There's a lot of free training resources there. So if you were looking at a role like this and hadn't had that experience, you could do some learning and investigations and research on your own. And then even the understanding of these different platforms. So a few of them listed here, and they too have resources commonly on their web pages about what it takes to manage these systems and support these systems. Before we jump to the next slide, I'll pause there just in case we have any questions in the chat.
You've taken care of some of the questions so far. Thank you for including the wage ranges. That's really, really helpful. You talked a bit about training and included that there. There's a question about internship opportunities available so they can learn on the job, or maybe even switch from tech careers in another industry over to the education industry.
Great question. Great question. I'd say that internships are always something that's on the table. To support interns, there is some steps and there's some contractual components. So I would share just kind of as an overall, internships may be less likely at some of our very small school districts that don't have the support structures and staff to manage an internship program. Some of our mid and larger sized districts do. We do at the county office. And there's a couple of different paths as far as internships. Again, I can speak for just the county office. Dwayne can jump in as far as a district. I'd say that our focus is where possible for those folks that are just graduating from high school or working through coursework in college, because they've been with us through their K-12 experience. We're wanting to offer opportunities where possible, but that does not mean that the general public is excluded in any way. So if you are currently working in a role and you're investigating making a move, by all means, yes, reaching out would be recommended to the individual district, the individual charter school, or even the county office to inquire about, is there anything open at this time? Dwayne, did you have anything to add about internships at the district level?
Yeah, I'd like to jump on a thing you said about the different districts. So different districts are definitely different as far as size. Since we're state funded, basically the student population drives actually how much funding a district gets. So it may be a little different depending on the size of the district, and it's hit or miss. I've worked in a couple of different school districts. A previous school district, we had student interns. We love to take them right from 11th and 12th grade and bring them right in. And then we had other people from outside that already had career experience. My current district in Vista Unified, we don't really have positions for interns, but we do volunteers. And so you'll more than likely see, if there's not an internship program, there's a volunteer program available, sometimes at your local school level. Like if you just walk up to the elementary and say, or whatever the school may be, your neighborhood school, sometimes you can just work directly with the principal and get some type of experience just doing the volunteer, because there's a lot of devices moving back and forth all the time, and they need assistance. So we've seen that. We've actually taken here in my school district, we've taken someone that started as a volunteer at a school that was doing extremely well. And then when a position became available for our help desk technician, we call it service desk technician, we actually hired that young gentleman, brought him in. He moved up to technician, and then eventually moved out as he took advantage of the opportunities we have here with education and training, and then moved on to the Department of Defense, where he currently works now as a security analyst. So.
And I piggyback on that as well. I think that's another benefit that you see, particularly in K-12 education and possibly higher ed as well, that you wouldn't see as much in the private sector, which is there is a considerable amount of resources provided to staff members around training, around professional growth, around opportunities. And while we, as Dwayne alluded to, while we hate to lose good people, it's not uncommon for someone to move up to a new role in a different nearby district because there is an opening. And we view that as a good thing, that we're offering upward mobility for folks to expand their knowledge, to grow in their careers, to increase their salaries. And so, yes, that's, again, speaking from my experience in the private sector, it was nowhere near the level of, because there's costs associated with that, right? As far as your time, taking away from the workday, and costs sometimes for trainers to come in or other specialists, or to attend a conference or a boot camp. So again, yet another benefit of K-12 education. I appreciate you bringing that up, Dwayne. Adina, did we have any others, or should we jump into the next slide?
No, I think you can go ahead and jump into the next slide. Thank you so much.
Okay, Dwayne, could you talk a little bit about these two roles?
Sure. So network technician and information security analyst. So network technician, these are positions that usually come in and have a little bit of experience and kind of work their way up in the technical area to be able to work on networks, the various networks that are available in school districts. So technical resource for planning, installation, configuration, and maintenance of computer network and hardware and software. Um, Qualifications typically fall in that associate level certification type level of knowledge, where employees usually have some hands-on experience, but and definitely some in-depth, either with a general certification that's out there or product specific, depending on the need. Information security analyst. And so, as you can see by some of our previous slides, the information security is an industry that's obviously is a growing market, and it's also a growing market in K-12 education. Even though you may not see that specific job in a district, it'll probably be there within the next 3 to 5 years on the job description. A lot of our county offices have full teams that do security audits, and I help other districts like myself with response and those type of things. So it's definitely a growing area, and certainly area of need with attention from every level of the state, as well. The organization that I work with, SITE, has a heavy emphasis on information security. We offer some training and collaboration around those areas. So, but in general, one of the things with school districts, as I mentioned before, the different size. So if you're in a smaller school district, we just went through 4 different jobs. You may be one person doing a little bit of everything. So it just depends on the size and scope of the district. And so what I always advise people is, hey, don't be afraid to learn something that may be off your path. If you're interested in hardware, you may want to learn 1 or 2 programming scripting languages. You may want to dive into security. You may want to learn different web programming, just to make sure you've been exposed to it. You don't have to be an expert, but just to make yourself a diverse candidate and add some tools to your toolbox. Oh, and here we go with some of the things I was just talking about. As I was talking about the webmaster and web developers, again, in some districts, you may not have a specific role as a webmaster. It may be split among a couple of people. I do a little bit of that myself in my district, in my role. And the DBA is kind of a mid-level position that you'll see throughout. As Terry mentioned, there's different student information systems that run on modern databases, whether it's SQL is a popular one, or no matter the database, or it may be a different system like a PeopleSoft or something like that, running on a different technology. Those database administrators are basically needed. And so we'll jump to the database administrator, because I talked a little bit about the webmaster. So DBAs typically have that bachelor level experience. You may see some with certification. There is a path where in some districts you may work up from the SIS into more data analyst, database administration type things, and then you'll also see, which is a trend in the last several years. Just like you see that trend for information security, you'll see a trend for really the analysis of the data. And so you'll see some data sciences and people like that start appearing on the scene as well. So do we have any questions here, or Terry, did you want to jump in as well?
So if we have any.
I have no specific questions on this section so far. I think folks are just really interested in what you guys have to say. It's some great information.
Okay. We'll move on to the next one here. I'll cover these two real briefly. As mentioned, technology is a broad term, right? There's a lot of different roles all across the spectrum. For example, in my role at the county level, we have our own television station. We air all the public and education access channel 16 on Cox Communications here locally. We have a graphic arts team that does design and does work for our districts and for ourselves at the county office, as far as everything from pamphlets to signs to learning and learning curriculum materials and so forth. And so graphic arts, which is you see in private sector as well, has a home in K-12 education, and a very important role. They do a lot of different things. It's a highly creative role. Having some experience is very important in this area. Usually people coming into these roles have some sort of portfolio. It may not even need to be something that they did in a job role, and maybe it's something that they did as a personal project, or a part of some of that as part of some of that volunteer work that Dwayne mentioned earlier. And then audiovisual support, that is, we have over 900 schools across the county and San Diego, and thousands upon thousands of classrooms. And so each of those has generally has computers, but also has a lot of audiovisual, has a range of different technologies, from smart boards to projectors of all different types, to sound systems and audio devices. And then working with the people that do come in, not only just the teachers themselves and administrators, but those that come in to pre-COVID, I should say, that we come into the classroom and present to students, maybe share about a job roles or information with students about career and the working world. This person supports all of those different things, including events, lots of training events, usually in school districts and the county level, that are taking place all the time. And so having those skills is very important, and those positions are available throughout the county. Having some experience, again, is helpful to landing one of these roles. And I think our last one here is just touching on, there's been, for those of you who have dabbled in IT, know that there's a lot of focus on moving workloads and servers and network functionality to the cloud, to a company like Microsoft and their Azure cloud, or Amazon and AWS, or Google and their cloud. And so working with servers these days doesn't always necessarily mean the servers are right in front of you there, near your desk or in a physical data center on your campus. Many of those services are now run in the cloud. And so, in fact, a lot of the hiring we have done at the county office recently has been around roles that not only support on-premises devices and equipment and servers, but also cloud technologies. So that is an area of particularly high demand. And so having an understanding of multi-process environments, understanding about virtualization, understanding about different types of operating systems is very, very helpful to getting into one of these technician roles. Application developer, software developer, lots of different names for the coding and crafting and designing of software solutions and applications across K-12. Lots of tools are used internally. The building out of visualizations and dashboards, so to help, for example, school site principals or teachers have an understanding of how students are doing and their learning progression. Applications development, as you saw in, I think it was the second or third slide, this one is probably one of the highest demand, I'd say, developers and cybersecurity. We just simply can't fill those positions fast enough, quite frankly. So applications developer is yet another that I would definitely take a look at if you have an interest in coding, if you have an interest in learning about programming languages of different types. And that takes us to our final slide. So I'll actually stop sharing so people can see each other.
Okay.
You are welcome to turn on your cameras, or if you want to have an additional question that you would like to either put in the chat, or at this point you're welcome to even unmute and just ask your question. We'd love to hear from you. But that wraps up our overview of some of the roles available in K-12 technology today.
Terry, there's a few questions about actually getting the job. So the first one is, I'm going to throw into the chat here edjoin.org, which is where jobs are posted. But folks are wondering about, is there a particular hiring season? Like, should they be looking for a particular time of year, particular time of week? Does it just depend on the job? When should folks start looking? And then related to that, if they have applied through EdJoin for a position and haven't heard anything back, what's the best process for following up? Do they follow up directly with HR, or would they contact someone like you?
I'm happy to talk a little bit about EdJoin and that question. Dwayne, did you want to talk a little bit about the timing piece and when you're looking, for example, to hire folks?
Yeah, I can talk about the timing. With most technical positions, it's I would say it's kind of all over the map. It depends. People may come and go, retire at different times, but typically in K-12, it's like it kind of follows the school year. So if you think about the schools starting, here, summer's ending, fall starting, and then people work throughout that year, and so everyone should be in place. And then as the summer rolls around, or we get into the spring and the summer's coming up, you'll start seeing more activity on a site like EdJoin. You'll see a lot of open positions that pop up. I would say the most kind of between that spring and summertime, because they're preparing for the school year. So they want to get people in place, hired in place to start that school year off successfully. So, but you will see some people kind of here and there. But from my experience, you'll see that spring and summer, people are either retiring or moving to different states, or whatever the case may be, transferring different districts, and you'll see that EdJoin is probably the best source for K-12 education. But I would also recommend don't hesitate to go to the district website, because even within San Diego County here, not every district participates in EdJoin, and so sometimes you have to go to the website, find their HR, and see what kind of system they're using, because they may be using another system to hire. If you have an interest, you kind of have to seek that information, and then I'll let Terry talk about the best way to pursue an opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I would just agree at the county level, very similar. There is some seasonality to hiring, but it's also as needed. And so there's a little bit more flexibility there. To be clear, our teaching staff in particular, there's very much a seasonality to that. But yeah, IT can be at different times throughout the year. As far as EdJoin, I would just echo what Dwayne said. A great first stop, if you will, as far as looking at what's available. Visiting, we have 42 school districts and over 100 charter schools in the county. So it's definitely some legwork, but there, in fact, if it's not on EdJoin and it's just on a district's website and you're hustling to go through the list and check out all the websites, you may find something that somebody else didn't and be able to apply for something that maybe they won't have as many respondents because it's just on their website. So that's a good recommendation from Dwayne as far as doing the legwork to look at different school district web pages directly to see what their openings are. EdJoin, yeah, I would say is probably the number one place across, from a statewide perspective. So checking those out there. Let's see here. I know that there was, now that I'm not showing my screen, I can see the questions. So I'll actually just jump into a couple of these. One of them that ties into EdJoin, so I'll jump ahead to Deborah's question. During these times of COVID, how is the hiring process? Slow, fast, or is there available hiring now? Great question, Deborah. So I would say at the beginning of COVID, there was a massive slowdown. I think everyone, it was a massive transition to close schools, to transition staff to work from home. There was still as much, if not more, demand from the technology teams, but I know our HR departments, in some cases, I'll speak for ours, it was a little bit slower during that time as they were had higher priorities and were meeting the needs of folks across the county. At this point, I would say another bit I would share about COVID is that it unfortunately has resulted in lots of job losses across all sectors. But again, one of the benefits, and yes, the salary levels might be slightly lower than what's offered in the private sector, but the fact that we have job security, there was, I can speak for my county office staff, there were no layoffs, which is kind of rare when you look at San Diego County and the entire state, and even nationally, the unfortunate job losses as a result of COVID. So having a stable job, having a consistent paycheck, having health benefits that cover you and your family, those are really, really big things. And so again, I know I'm sounding, I'm a little bit on my soapbox here and talking about how great education is, but there really is some great benefits. So as far as hiring, I'd say I've seen a lot more postings recently. I know that because of challenging budget times, many districts have slowed down hiring for certain roles. But what I've heard from a few of our districts, and I know internally at the county office, when you look at priorities, the technology teams are either at the top or very close to the top. And so, for example, we have hired some folks recently, even though generally we've slowed down our hiring at the county office just temporarily. So again, it's still a great time to be in technology because the demand has only increased.
Can you also talk, Terry,
Yes.
about what it looks like right now during COVID with so many things being closed? What do those positions look like right now? Are they working in schools? Are they working remotely?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are doing a little bit of both. I think Dwayne might even be able to answer that a little bit better from his perspective and how his people are working with the community and with families and getting devices into students' hands. Dwayne, would you take that one?
Sure. I have a staff of like 26, and to support our 29 schools, and we have probably like 4 administrative locations, and those 29 or 2,000 or 20,000 students, there's families associated with those as well, and so, but we have a small team of technical support. It's just a core group of technicians, just 8 technicians, and 1 person on our service desk at this time. So he's overwhelmed. But and then we have some data people, SIS people, and then what I call my network team, which is a group of gentlemen that do all of our network support, our routing, switching, and wireless, and kind of where we are is with our technicians, which is our frontline employee. They go out and they make sure everyone's device is working, is connected properly, and it's and they assist it with some device distribution for students and staff. We have Wi-Fi hotspots that we pass out as well, and so they assist with that. We did a rotation with them. And so some were at home, some were here. Now they're all here preparing for school to come back. But all of my data people have been out since this thing started in March. And so I meet with them frequently. We have a group chat, but they've been out this whole time. I hadn't physically seen them in several months. My service desk kind of bounces between his home and here. Because if he needs to do any warranty items and send things out, he'll come in, he'll send that through the warehouse. And so we kind of, we're flexible because we can actually work from anywhere. So my network team, they're kind of in and out as well. They work remotely a lot. We have soft phones for everybody. So you can't really tell these days on where someone is unless you're like their direct supervisor, because it's kind of like we were fortunate enough to be in a position where we made some good decisions years ago, and those systems are paying off for us. So you never know if you're talking to someone and they're in their garage or their home office, or they're actually at a school. So it's kind of a new thing. K-12 is very traditional, and usually they want to see you in an office doing your thing, you know, and then everything's good. And it's just so this is upsetting everything right now.
Yeah, COVID has been quite a shift, and I'd say the vast majority of our IT team at the county level has indeed worked from home. We have staff, we have a data center that they are there every day of the week to provide support services. But it's really a situation, to Dwayne's point, that were traditionally always something that was on site, and but based, again, circling back to the topic of technology, it empowers us to do this, right? To work from home. And we have a lot of other of our fiscal services staff and business services staff working from home, and others, and even teachers as we move into distance learning. We know that we got off the watch list yesterday, but the governor had required most of our counties to open with distance learning. And how do you do distance learning? Predominantly with technology. And so again, it's been a very important item to have technology, to have systems, to have platforms, to have tools, so that you could transition and still continue to be productive. Because you know, the work rolls on, COVID or not. And so yeah, it's been very, very interesting during this period, particularly the last 6 months.
Yeah, technology work never ends in schools. That is for sure. There are also a couple of questions, and they're related here. One of them about the key experience or skills beyond the normal job requirements that would be important to list on a resume or discuss in an interview. And as someone who has sat in many interview panels, the importance of some of those interpersonal skills and speaking skills, what kinds of things folks should focus on, and then what kinds of background checks or clearances would be needed for employment.
And I'll start with that one. When you talk about key experiences or skills beyond the normal job requirements, so while we're looking, so if we have a network position, we may require, you'll see in every job description for most K-12 organizations, you'll see that knowledge, skills, and ability, and you have to check those boxes. You have to, you know, meet those minimum requirements. But really, and it goes back to what Adina just said, is you know, those soft skills are extremely important. So I'll go through someone's background, and I hired someone because they worked at Jamba Juice, and this was several years ago, but and it was for a service desk, help desk type position. And the reason why it was key and important for me to hire him was because I have that experience of going into Jamba Juice. Jamba Juice is typically not a large place. You know, it's not a large business. So you go in, it's a one-to-one experience. You trying to figure out what you want, and then they have to deliver it. And so there's some conversation there that takes place. There's a level of customer service, you know, that takes place. And that's what I really needed, because all the technical stuff, we can provide a training. I can teach you myself. I can model those things. But some of the customer service, those are the skills that are most needed, because we're a service organization working in technology in most K-12 districts, and they're typically not calling to say hello, how is your day going? They're typically calling because something is broken and is interrupting their whole entire world. And so to be able to talk them off the ledge is an important skill. So and I try and practice that myself. I don't get upset when it comes to many things at work. And those are the type of skills that I would highlight. Working on a team, working with people of diverse ethnicities and backgrounds, extremely important in working in this environment. And if you want to add anything, Terry.
No, you nailed it. Those are the top items. We're very much in alignment on that one, as far as, you know, certain roles require certain skills, but in many cases, many of those things can be learned, or you can expand or build upon existing learning. it really is those soft skills, being able to provide excellent customer service, be able to take the heat when someone is frustrated, and sometimes even yelling. I mean, it's a matter of how do you help them to solve whatever issue they have, but also to connect with them on a very personal level, and to be, we talk a lot internally at the county office about having, empathy, and that people are particularly during COVID, there's so many things going on. There's such a high stress level. We're not making widgets that maybe you can break one or have something that doesn't come out quite right. We're dealing with children and families and real people and real lives. And so the stakes are very, very high for the people working in our schools, whether it's, teachers or food service workers or front office staff or secretary. It doesn't matter what it is. It's you're engaging and doing something very, very important. And so when something isn't working for them, they feel their own pressure that they need to deliver. And so Dwayne's absolutely right. It's about how do you connect with people, understand, empathize with them, help them drill down to whatever the issue is, help them solve it, and then be able to reflect and see how can we avoid things like that in the future? How can we be a little bit more proactive, or how maybe there's multiple people have the same issue, and so there's a broader problem that needs to be addressed. So, but the soft skills, absolutely. I'll tell you right now, I've been in countless interviews, and more than once, the smartest person in the room, or with the most experience or the deepest amount of knowledge, if they've come in and don't have an interest or have the attitude towards customer service and helping others, they do not advance. And so, yeah, spot on. I think those are some of the other key items.
And I'll just mention real quick, the question, another part of that question was typically what kind of background checks. And so I believe we all do the Department of Justice background check. So it does also, is it the Megan's Law type of thing? So, okay.
Yep, and fingerprinting. Yep. Most do drug screenings initially upon hire. But other than that, yes, it's pretty common for what you would have in the private sector as well, as far as screenings.
I'd like to throw in, just as someone who was on the educator side, another one of those soft skills is being able to explain something technical in non-technical language. When you're working with teachers and administrators and students and families, they may not have that same technical background you do. And so being able to help them understand what's going on and explain things in ways that aren't quite as technical is very, very helpful.
Excellent.
Right. Do we have any further questions? Gentlemen, anything that you would like to add as we wrap up?
I would just say thanks again for attending today. If you have friends, family, colleagues, others that are interested in this work, by all means, again, I would point to EdJoin or to reaching out to districts or charters directly. Really, at the end of the day, we're looking for the best possible people to support the students and families all across this great county. So, yes, it's an area where we're always looking for people. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out. But appreciate your participation today.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much. You guys have been fantastic. So in the chat, I threw in a couple of links. One to edjoin.org, where you will find postings for most districts and charters. I also threw in workforce.org/on-demand, where you will find the recording for this session once it's posted, as well as the previous sessions that we've done in partnership with workforce.org, and a link to our next session, which will be next Tuesday at the same time at 1 o'clock on business services careers. So there are lots of positions that aren't about teaching in a classroom, but that are available to folks. So we'll hope you join us for that as well. Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Be safe.